Welcome, everyone, to episode number 43, 4 followed by a 3 of Endless Conversation Loop. Today is July 18th, 2025. My name is Brandon, and wouldn't you know it, I am joined here by my co-host for many an episode now, and his name is...
Boom.
And much like last time, you sound like you are mighty tired right about now.
What gave that impression away?
Well, the big yawn might be a good example of why I have that impression.
I can't imagine that at all.
And we are here today to talk about some interesting topics, but I think the main one today is going to be on crossovers, is it not?
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit later about some of the more oddball crossovers in terms of gaming. I'll get more into it later, but basically I wanted to kind of go over some of them because of the news of, if you are familiar, the next Sonic Racing game and its interesting crossovers that it came up with, and it got me kind of wondering about what else there might be out there in terms of like, that's a choice. And yeah, we'll break it down a little bit more later, but it looks like we have a little bit more before that you want to bring up.
No, I will admit, I feel a little guilty because I think I've been dominating the episodes a little bit lately because I've just kept having these like things that come up that I'm like, I want to do an intro-y topic on it. And it'd be ideally I'd have it for just these episodes where it is your topic, but even on, you don't want to just let things fall by the wayside either, just because it's like, well, it's not my episode, but it's new and I want to talk about it, right? But this one fortunately I think we can keep relatively short. So last week, I believe it's last week, it might have been earlier this week, but I'm pretty sure it was last week, I get an email on my personal email while I'm sitting at work from our friends at YouTube. If you didn't know, audio-only listeners, the show does release on YouTube in a video format. It's nothing like super-duper amazing, but I just know some people, like they like that platform in particular, so it's like, well, may as well offer it, right? And what the email says is like, in order to keep your community safe, we've built some features and for like verification and such, and your channel doesn't have enough sufficient channel history, which, I wouldn't be really all that upset with, because what it entails is you lose access to these advanced features. And two of the features we'd lost don't really apply to things that are really important to us, like embedding live streams. We've never live streamed, right? Getting higher daily limits for live streams, shorts, and video uploads. Okay, well, we don't do any shorts. Who knows, that could change, but I personally don't think with our format that that's really going to work. Again, we haven't done any streaming. The only thing that could maybe matter is video uploads, but I would assume this is in terms of how many uploads you have, not how long it is. One of them that's like is kind of annoying, but it's like not the biggest deal, is pinning comments, because all the comments we've gotten have been on Spotify anyway. But the one that took me over the line to be like, this is ridiculous, is the inability to add external links to your video's description. So if you look at the descriptions for any episode here on all the platforms, it is very link heavy, and part of that is because we need to credit the song that you had heard in the first 5 seconds of the episode. And I will admit I haven't been nearly as good about it, but I have previously included like links to like, hey, here's where I'm getting this information on stuff. And I also have links for stuff like if you are on the audio version and you want to see the video, here's the link to the channel, and vice versa. If you found this on YouTube and you're like, oh, I like this, but I don't want to have to necessarily have a video on, I'd like to just have it be audio, I have a link to the Spotify page. Not to mention, of course, speakpipe.com/endless conversation loop, where you can send in an audio message. So if you can't put in external links, that's kind of a problem, isn't it? So there are a few ways to resolve that issue. The hard one is to build a positive channel history by following community guidelines, which is only really hard because it's like vague. Like, what does that mean? And, last time I checked, I know you don't have access to the YouTube studio, but I think I sent it to you. I can't remember.
I don't think so, yeah.
We don't have any strikes or anything, so, like, this just seems a little excessive, To the extent we have any quote-unquote adult content, it's because of us talking broadly around a game that happens to include that subject. Like last week with Dead Rising and how many, zombie stuff can have a lot of blood and gore, but it's not like we feature all that visually in the video. So to me, that just seems a little excessive, right? But there were two alternative ways, and to me, these are also pretty inappropriate, which is either I could provide a photograph of my driver's license, which I would really prefer Google not have, or what I went with, because it's like we really do need these links, I had to record like a little 6-second video of my face, which, many of the oldest videos on here, like I mean, I still have it too. Like I could literally look up at it right now, although it's not turned on. I did. There was like a video feed of me, so like you'd see me sitting there talking, right? So like it's not like there isn't video of my face on here, but the whole thing here I just think is I don't like it. I don't like the needless invasion of privacy.
Yeah, I mean, it just feels weird sometimes when we have like these new, we'll say, requirements, I would argue, where they're trying to like get, it seems like, more information. And like this isn't just, I think, a YouTube problem. I think this is like other websites too, when they're trying to really push the envelope of like how much information can we get from our users before it becomes to be a bit too much. And this is, I think, kind of getting into that line again on Google/YouTube's case. Like, I don't see the point, if I'm being completely honest, but maybe that's just me.
I understand the idea of wanting verification, but it's not like this gives our channel a little verification badge like you would get on other platforms. And again, it's like some of that stuff, it's like I can see where other channels would really need it, but again, the only one we really desperately need is to be able to link to other stuff. And I would be fine if like the community guideline history was literally looking at like, hey, have you, violated anything? Oh, you haven't? Well, then it's not a problem. Or like even the little video I had to do is like, that's like, I would really prefer not to do it. But like to even suggest like, yeah, just give us a photo of your like government ID seems like a lot.
See, you say that and it feels like it's fake. You know what I mean? Like, it sounds like one of those like scams you would see on like somebody who's like texting like for like, oh, so someone hacked into your bank account, send us the security code and we'll get it all squared away. It's like something like that, where it's like that just doesn't feel real. And in this case, I feel like it is, I know, real, which makes it even stupider.
Yeah. It is what it is. We need the links, but it's just like, really, Google? You want a picture of my driver's license? I could put links in a video description? Like, come on. Like, come on. You kidding? Ugh.
I'm sure there's...
Anyway.
I'm sure it's one of those situations where, like, there's probably a better way to do that with the verification, but I don't know if it's just... We'll hopefully see it be more implemented. I don't know. But hopefully it's...
I honestly, I don't even mind the verification. It's just like you could really pick some like truly advanced features if you're going to do this. If you're going to do this, don't have one of your quote unquote advanced features be to link to other stuff.
Yeah, that especially seems really stupid.
Anyway, so look at this. We got through an intro topic in less than 15 minutes here.
I mean, there is a God, yes.
There is a God. There is a God. I mean, many different ones according to all kinds of different religions, but, you have to pick the one that you are interested in, or the lack thereof. But now we can move on to our main topic. Would you like to introduce us to what we're talking about today a little more?
Sure. So I'll kind of elaborate what I brought up earlier. So today's topic on crossovers. I recently was kind of thinking about this due to the announcement of the new Sonic Racing game, Sonic Racing Crossroads, and some of the characters that were in that game in particular. At the time of the recording, the game has already announced DLC for at least the first two waves in terms of like who's actually coming out, and then two more that are like they're not announced, but they at least have like what they are announced.
You don't know who the character is, but you know like where they're
Right.
from.
So as of now, the first two DLCs that they added included Steve, Alex, and I believe Creeper from Minecraft, as well as SpongeBob and Patrick from SpongeBob SquarePants. And then among the two that haven't been fully announced yet, they will be featuring characters from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Avatar: The Last Airbender. Now, mind you, this is all coming on top of a game that Hatsune Miku is going to be at launch for this game, along with Joker from Persona 5 and Ichiban from the Yakuza and Like a Dragon series. So it's one of those things where I'm like, this just seems like a very oddball, like, grouping of crossovers. And then it kind of got me to thinking, like, well, what are some of, like, the weirder ones that are out there in gaming? And I will mention this, too. In one of the previous other Sonic Racing games, we also had Danica Patrick in a previous installment. I just really want to know why they decided that, hey, we want a real life racer. I would have maybe understood it to some degree, but like the fact that it's just there, I'm like, all right. So with that being said, with Sonic Smash Racing, basically the spearhead of this whole thing, as I'm calling it, I wanted to kind of research a little bit into some of the weirder gaming crossovers that I could find. And I have like 5 examples here. And when I
I think it's pretty unlikely we're going to get to all these today, but we're well prepared. I have a bunch too.
Yeah, so I wanted to kind of just go through my examples, and then Brandon will be able to go through some of his more oddball ones. Because I feel like some of these ones, like, I knew about. Like, that's what most of my list is. But then there's a couple of them when I was researching that I didn't even know was actually a thing until recently. So let's kind of go down. The first one is, if you are familiar, we've talked about Telltale games before in the past. And 2 games that I'm familiar with, and these are, I think, 2 games that I probably played first for their stuff, are the Poker Night at the Inventory games. That was the first one that kind of stuck out to me. If you're not familiar, Telltale did these, basic, we'll say basic, poker games that featured multiple characters from all sorts of media, both on games and on even shows in some cases. The first game, it featured the Heavy from Team Fortress 2. It had Max from the Sam and Max games. But then it also featured Strong Bad from Homestar Runner, and then Tycho from Penny Arcade, which was an old webcomic from like the mid-2000s, which I only ever saw him on Poker Night at the Inventory. I did not know he was actually from a thing until I researched it like many years after that. And then if you get into the second game, it features both Sam and Max, where Sam you actually play against, and then Max is in the peanut gallery, also kind of chirping in, like, in random intervals with it. Claptrap from Borderlands is also featured in there. Ash Williams from the Evil Dead series and Brock Sampson from the Venture Bros are all the characters you play against. But then there's also GLaDOS from the Portal series, which is, for some reason, the dealer. And it's one of those things where when I first played it, like, when I was in college, I never really put 2 and 2 together about, like, how odd it was. Because to me, it just was this natural, albeit weird, kind of, like, thing. Because, like, when I first played it, I played Poker Night 2 first, and I knew all those characters in there. Because, like, I've seen some of the Evil Dead stuff, I've played Borderlands, I knew of Sam and Max, and I've heard of the Venture Bros from friends. And it was so weird because, like, all these characters interacting just feel weirdly natural, and it was just a really good time. Like, yeah, like a lot of the time as you kind of get into the game longer and longer, it's like they start to repeat some of the same conversations, but it's like I never really got bored of it. Yeah, it was just a poker game at the end of the day, but it was still a fun time because it was like, you could have these unlockables that like kind of featured from all the shows and all the stuff in there. In the second game, I remember, because I don't remember if the first one had this, but I know the second one, like, they would have like certain times where like characters would like put in as part of their ante, you had to like beat them to get like their like treasured thing. Like Ash bets the Necronomicon at one point.
Because that's a good idea.
Well, right, but it's like it's still hilarious kind of like seeing some of that stuff like now. And unfortunately, those games are no longer listed on Steam, which is a true travesty in my opinion. And that was even before Telltale went defunct. Like, I think there was like a thing with the licensing with it all, because I mean, with how many characters that they had to have licensed out, it definitely needed to have like probably a limiter on it. But like, I was lucky that I got them because like they were fairly cheap when I first bought them, even back in the day. Like, I think I bought them for like less than $5 a pop each. So it was definitely like one of those games that I genuinely loved for the longest time, and like I might have to actually revisit it at some point just to kind of see how they hold up. Like, I know the second game was leagues better than the first game, but like the first game still has its charm. It's just I think that they don't have as memorable characters like with their conversations, and I'm glad that it did well enough to give us a second game, to give us, I'd say, more well-known characters for a lot of people, at least at the time. But maybe that's just me.
To me, the interesting thing about it, like you said, is it still feels natural. Like, I'm sitting here and I'm wondering, like, what really was the thought process in picking these specific groups of characters? Some of them make sense in the sense that Telltale was doing the newer at the time Sam and Max games. So putting them in the game already makes sense. You're either going to make the models, or they already had the models sitting around. You've already got contact with the actors. But then when you start getting into the others, then you start thinking about, okay, so you're going to pick a character from a web comic, but why? But if the justification is you can genuinely get good banter out of the other characters by picking that one, it just becomes a sensible decision. It becomes a good creative decision. And then kind of similarly in the next game, when you think of two characters that would be interesting to banter with each other, how do you get to the conclusion of a character from an Adult Swim animated series and a character like a robot from one of Valve's biggest games in Portal, right? But again, if the creative process is like, okay, we can have some genuinely interesting interactions by putting those two characters together and pairing them with these other ones, I'm all for it. Even if when you look at the lineup, it seems strange. As long as there's like a cohesion when you get to the end of it, I figure that's what makes sense, you know?
Yeah, and I think that the second game in particular does a really good job of it because, like, they're all characters that, like, on their own, they really know how to command the spotlight when they're on. But, like, in Poker Night at the Inventory 2, they give everybody, like, a really good way to kind of, like, be able to balance it out. Like, no one's really overstepping or, like, one's trying to hog the spotlight over the other. Like, even when GLaDOS, like, she's talking to them, like, while she's dealing, it feels natural. Like, it's hilarious when Claptrap is trying to hit on GLaDOS with no success, mind you.
and then having like a conversation between someone like Brock and Ash where they're talking about their adventures, and like it turns out it sounds like they have more in common than you would expect initially. I think that's why that second game just is so much better overall than this first game. Because, like, the first game is like, oh, we have all these, like, really interesting characters, but, like, there's a little less cohesiveness with it all. And I don't... As weird as it sounds, I feel like Sam and Max are, like, the best glue for those games because they have, like, the best way to kind of, like, interact with everybody in a way. Sam is, like, genuinely curious in the second game, talking with like Brock and Ash and Claptrap about their adventures, but then you hear Max from the back basically like insulting them too, and it's like such a weird like good mix of conversation and banter that I don't think you would ever get normally from like a crossover game like that in particular. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was really good. If there is a way for people to play it still, like, I would definitely recommend it. Unfortunately, I don't know if there is anymore. I think it's been delisted across the board, so I'm just lucky I bought it when I did on Steam. So I at least have access to it now. But yeah, if there is a way that someone can find a way to do it, like, I would definitely recommend it if you have, like, a couple hours to kill. Just to play some poker, like... it's a really clean game too in terms of, like, it doesn't really glitch out or anything like that. It just is like it's simple and it doesn't have to be anything more than it is.
Yeah, it does a good job of what it needs to do, and sometimes that's all you need, you know?
Now the second one is, I think, a more popular than I would expect on this list. The Mario and the Rabbids games on Switch. That's such a weird crossover to me. Like, it feels like a fever dream, if I'm being completely honest. Like, we are talking about a turn-based strategy game that is featuring Mario characters and Mario-themed rabbits that are all packing heat in the style of basically like a XCOM game. And the fact that the game exists, let alone that they are incredible games, just feels really weird to me. Like, the whole plot of it of being basically this like, oh, the Mushroom Kingdom is like glitched out because of, at least in the first game, like all this stuff happened where something got mixed in the rabbit's like time portal machine that was basically a washer, and it gets like the entire Mushroom Kingdom corrupted because of it. Now you have to like navigate around this weird Mushroom Kingdom with like everyone having like basically Mega Man style busters or like guns or whatever it might be. And like, I'm so glad that they exist because like it's such a weird time, but they're such solid games. Like, they are probably one of the best games on the Switch console in like the 10 years or whatever it was that it was out, like from start to finish.
It's something from the conceptual level that seems so destined for failure. Mm-hmm. Especially because, and this will become relevant in our next episode, funnily enough, Ubisoft doesn't always have the best track record. Mm-hmm. But, you know, and that's certainly not to disparage the actual team that did this, because, yeah, these games are really good. Mm-hmm. But there's still something that even to this day, that when the premise of let's have Mario, well-established icon of the video game industry, be in a game with these characters that, for sure, for a long time, were not beloved. For some, if not many people, were believed to have more or less killed Rayman for a while. Mm-hmm. And then to have it come out being something like being in a genre that's totally like, huh? Strategic RPG shooter game. Like you said, basically XCOM, mm-hmm. right? And to have that all somehow come together and be good, and to be able to do it twice, is just a feat that I can't imagine. But yet it's reality. It's what the team at Ubisoft Milan made, and what can I say? They did a good job.
I do hope that like eventually on Switch 2 that we get a third game to kind of like round it out and everything. Like I'm glad we got 2 at least on the Switch in surprisingly quick succession that really didn't dip in quality with those games. So hopefully we'll get a third one on the newest system soon.
We will see. While we're on the subject of Mario, why don't we dip into one of my games, because I also have a Mario crossover.
Sure.
All right, so picking up also on a thread from our previous episode, I have a game on the Wii. What do you know? Another strange Wii game.
I can't believe it. Brandon talking about a Nintendo game whatsoever.
Okay. Assuming we get to more of my own, this is honestly the only one I have on the list. Everything else I have is, well, one of them's multi-platform. The other two, I have a PlayStation 2 game, a PlayStation 1 game, a PlayStation 3 game, and a Dreamcast game.
You know, big spread over there. Like, I have a lot more, I feel like, recent examples on mine, but maybe we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, I can't imagine we'll get to all these today, because I know we have other stuff we need to do, and we're already 30 minutes into this, but, you know, I figure we'll get to at least, I mean, we're already on the third one, so who knows, we might get to five or six total, but the game I want to talk about is Fortune Street. So, this was if Pac-Man Party last week was a late release Wii game in 2010, this was an even later release Wii game in that it came out in December of 2011. And Fortune Street, if you don't really know anything about it...
Like, I know of it.
You have some questions?
Sorry, I was going to say, like, I know of it. Because I think, if I remember right, wasn't this on Wii U at some point, or am I thinking of something else?
It was a Japan exclusive game for the longest time. There's an NES version, SNES, a bunch of PlayStation games, and then there's one on the DS and one on the Wii. There's also a PlayStation 4 game and a Vita game, but that came out in 2017, and that was 8 years ago, and that's the most recent one, and I am sad, because I want more, and I want more of it in English so I can understand
I'm
it.
getting old hearing, like, oh yeah, 2017 was like 8 years ago, and I'm like, I am getting a walker after this episode.
Yeah, I feel that.
Sure,
So... So this game, the basic way a lot of people describe it is it's like Monopoly and Mario Party, which, I mean, I guess, but that seems just like a very bird's eye, surface level view of the game, because it's like, oh, it's a board game, video game, therefore it's like Mario Party, and it's like Monopoly because it's about money. And there's a heck of a lot more to the game than that. The long and short of it is, at the start of the game, you are given a target net worth to acquire, and the way that you do that is you go around the board, you buy properties, you have 4 suits to collect, like the standard card suits, and the starting space is the bank. So if you return to the bank after having collected all 4 of those suits, you get a promotion, so just a bunch of money. And when you're at the bank and on certain spaces, you can also invest in you can invest stocks in districts, because the properties are all in like colored district groups. So like District A is all red. And so if you invest money in that, you get a dividend based on when other players land on properties that you may own or that your opponents may own. So, you know, you could have player 3 lands on player 2's property and your player 1, but you've invested money in District A, so you get a cut of money because player 2 was paid money from player 3. And you can also invest money into the properties and make them worth even more and make your life very not fun for your opponents, and it's a great time. It can be frustrating, particularly when you're playing alone, but when you're playing with other people, it's a great time. So where does the crossover fit in here? When the game started, when the series started, I should say, they just used like generic human characters. But then when they reached the, 1, 2, 3, 4, even though this one's numbered 3, because why would we do it like anything else? When we reach the fifth game, this is after Square merged with Enix, and so they're like, okay, well, what do we do for the next Fortune Street game, or as they called it, or as it's called in Japan, Itadaki Street? I know. We'll use characters from both our biggest franchises, Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy. And then they did that again for a PSP game, and then finally we reached 2007 for the DS game, and how this applies to the Wii game, because it's pretty much the same roster with a couple more. We're going to have the Mario cast. So, all your big major Mario characters that you'd expect to see in a game. But who's going to be from the Square Enix side? The Dragon Quest side?
Okay, I was wrong. I was thinking it was Final Fantasy for some reason.
Well, see, Final Fantasy, in my opinion, would make more sense in the sense of it's a more popular series. Especially if you're like, okay, let's finally bring a game to the West. More people know Final Fantasy than they know Dragon Quest. But the original, the person who designed the game, at the very start, is Yuji Horii, the creator of Dragon Quest.
That makes more sense now.
So, and I mean, I do really enjoy the game on its own, just as what it is. But, of course, I was also certainly more brought into the fold by knowing, as a child, that, oh, this was a Mario game. But it's still very bizarre, when you put it all together to think, so you've got Bowser owns, a big business, and then you've got who are some of the characters in the game? You got Bianca from Dragon Quest V, one of the potential wives, one of the potential heavenly brides that you can have in the game. And she owns some small or large business in the game and has a stock portfolio. You've got Yoshi, who wants to become tax exempt, which, yes, that means this... No, seriously, this is the game where the joke about Yoshi committing tax fraud originates from.
You're kidding me. This is where the joke came from?
This is where the joke came from. I am not kidding you whatsoever. There is a screenshot of it somewhere here. Let me send this to you because you will find this hilarious.
I've never been happier knowing something exists in my life because of this.
Yeah, so if you ever seen a joke out there about Yoshi commits tax fraud or character commits tax fraud, know that it is from Fortune Street.
Why?
And then you have, other characters. You can have a slime who is... yeah, actually, no. I mean, you can have slime as a player character and just do, normal stuff that you do in the game. But also, there's an arcade space, which in the Japanese version is a casino space, which is evidenced by the fact that one of the 4 games that it rotates through is a horse race, but the horses are not horses, they are slimes. So you pick one of 5 slimes to win the race, and you win money based on how many treasure chests they pass along the way, and or if they win the race. So, bizarre game. Very Japanese game, let's be honest. But I love it to death. It's so good.
Oh my god. I actually never knew anything about this. I've only ever seen, bits and pieces of it, but I never knew this was where it came from. Jeez.
Yep. Yoshi wants to commit tax fraud, and now you know the origin of it.
Well, sticking on the whole casino topic, why don't we jump into one of my other parts of my list here. I recently just finished beating Dave the Diver, and this is probably the most recent addition on the list for me in terms of crossovers, is the crossover of Balatro just randomly making its way into Dave the Diver. So, Balatro, if anyone's played it, there are crossovers with that game, but it's more of the sense of they have all these, different types of games that have, you can change the suits or the kings, queens, and jacks on your cards based on the suit, and they come from different IPs. So there's, Dave the Diver originally, is one of them, then Assassin's Creed, Critical Role, among, many, many others. There's, I think at least, I want to say it's, 12 now. I could be wrong. But something I didn't know about it, and I did not find this out until the game, when I was playing it, decided we're gonna go into this quest line, is that there's an entire quest where the sea people in the game are playing Balatro. And I'm like, huh, that's really weird. Because, like, it doesn't really, like, tip you off that it's Balatro at the beginning. It's just, like, a random cutscene that happens from the one dude in the, like, game parlor. And all of a sudden, it turns out he found this book that apparently taught them all how to play. So now he's teaching them at the game parlor. So the quest line is you have to go and talk to some of, like, the more prevalent people in the village to try to win, like, a round of Balatro. And they all give you these different jokers, which are coincidentally from the game. Like, it's a very watered down version of the game, but it is in fact just Balatro. Like, full stop. It's the same gameplay. It's exactly what it is supposed to be. Like, it has so many of the bits from it. The only gripe is that, like, I can't, like, speed up the scoring like I can in the main game, like, when I actually play Balatro. Like, you're stuck at the pace that it makes you go. It's not as much of a gripe, though, I feel like, because, like, depending on who you talk to during the game, it can go anywhere from, like, 1 round to 3 rounds. So it's like, okay, I'm not literally spending, like, all day waiting for my points to get calculated. But, like, I think part of it is because, like, they really don't have a way to put that into Dave the Diver. So, yeah, that one really just caught me off guard out of nowhere, and I was happy that it was fun, but it was like, it was really awkward when I was like just, trying to, keep moving on with the main story at the time, and then all of a sudden I'm playing Balatro, and I'm like, I could just be playing Balatro on my Switch right now instead of playing Dave the Diver, but alright. And I feel like I should mention this before I forget. Dave the Diver itself also has got a bunch of weird crossovers in addition to that, including it has a crossover with Dredge and the Like a Dragon Yakuza series, and for some reason Godzilla, which I recently just found out they brought back for a limited time, and it is completely free to put on to Dave the Diver now. This is not me sponsored or anything.
Not sponsored.
I just want people to know about this because this was like a temporary DLC and I missed it the first time, so naturally I put it on as soon as I found out, and it's apparently going on until like sometime the end of this year that it's gonna get pulled. So if you are on Steam or on any other platforms for Dave the Diver, that is a free download. Go get it. Like, it is a ride. I don't know what it entails. I will be playing it at some point, probably between now and then, because I did just finish buying all the rest of the DLC for that game. But I will be finding out why is Godzilla in Dave the Diver very, very soon at some point.
It's always been a weird game to me to see all these crossovers with, because from the initial premise, it doesn't seem like something that necessarily can have crossovers. And yet they've done so many. Although I've also noticed that as a pattern among some independent games is, like, indie games do really enjoy crossing over with each other. And, that is something that I think is a definite charm to independent games on the whole.
Yeah, and I think part of it is because, like, at least in terms of, like, the indie side of stuff, it's when you don't have, like, a hard commitment with, like, a major company, like a Nintendo or even, like, a Sony or something like that. I feel like you have a little bit more flexibility because it's like you're all trying to just kind of promote your product at the end of the day. And when you have, like, some of those bigger name companies, I feel like it's a little bit harder because, like, they may want just more money, or maybe they just don't have any interest in it. But then you get, like, this, where it's, like, Dave the Diver, Dredge, Balatro, like, they're all very independent, like, run, and they all have various levels of success. Like, I think it's one of those things where, like, it's just nice to have, like, support from the indie community as a whole. And I don't know if that means that there will be more DLC for this game, or any of those games for that matter, under the sun. But like, I'm very happy with what we got because it's like each of them really kind of like brought something weird to the table when it came to it. Because like the Balatro update basically put the game in for like the gambling side of things. Because you do actually earn money if you succeed in the game. But then like I think the Godzilla update, if I remember right, has like I want to say it has boss fights, but I could be wrong on that. And then like I know Dredge and Like a Dragon, they have like story beat elements and like new fish to catch in some cases for the Dredge one. And then like I know in the Like a Dragon one that they have like there's a straight up old school beat 'em up like level at least in there, and I'm like I really want to know what is causing Dave and Ichiban to just randomly start throwing hands against enemies, but hey, whatever works. I'm all for it here.
Yep. As long as you can figure out a way to do it and it doesn't seem contrived, I think a premise like that is going to work out. That's really the thing that has to be done here. It can't be like, I don't know about that.
It's really showcases like how it's like sometimes the weirder ideas do end up coming to fruition a lot better than I think people can give it credit for. But yeah, I have two more, so I don't know, do we want to get one more of your topics, or should I just keep going down my list?
Well, why don't we do, because I know, I mean, I haven't done much yet this morning, so like I know I need to go like eat before I head off to the office in about an hour and a half. So why don't we do, because one of the ones I have here actually also would dovetail pretty well into yours. So why don't we do one more of mine, and then, we'll do the one that dovetails well with yours. And I mean, honestly, at that point, if you just want to do the last one, since you have one more, I'm sure that won't take up too much time.
Well, there's one I definitely want to talk about in particular. So if that's the one that dovetails, I'm fine with just doing that one. But we'll see where we go.
So let's hope that this is where it goes, because the game that I am going to talk about next is a PlayStation 2 title, and technically I'm going to talk about two PS2 games, but I picked this one first, and that is Ape Escape 3. Now, what on earth did Ape Escape 3 cross over with, you might be asking, because this just sounds like a standalone game. And that'd be because, by and large, it is a standalone game. It's third entry in the series, just continues on the previous stories with the PS1 game and the first PlayStation 2 game about all these monkeys that have escaped and are, doing evil, and you need to capture them with your net. But there's a bonus minigame that is unlocked. Well, it's unlocked for purchase from an in-game shop after you beat the game. And that game is titled Metal Gear Solid, which is a parody, of course, of Metal Gear Solid, where you play as one of the monkeys, who's like made up to be Snake. And the monkey's mission is to rescue Snake and destroy this like a monkey-looking Metal Gear creation. So basically, you've got a little teeny tiny bit of Metal Gear Solid in Ape Escape 3, and again, they do all the stuff that like makes it like kind of monkey themed between the Metal Gear, between like the weapons. You have like a banana gun. You use different kinds of fruit as like weapons. It's very Donkey Kong 64 like in that sense, now that I think about it. And then the best part, the thing that puts the cherry on top of the whole thing, is Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater had its own crossover in the PS2 version, or well, the original like PS2 release. So before you get to I think it was the, is it the Substance or Subsistence is the game? Subsistence is like the expanded version, so it's not included in that one.
But how is it the expanded version if it doesn't have this?
Well, all these other changes. But yeah, Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater has the snake versus monkey mode, and so it's basically Snake, but he's playing Ape Escape in that he has to capture the monkeys, but in a very Snake-like way. So you've got realistic looking, hardened, solid Snake who's just been traumatized by all the events of Metal Gear Solid 3 and war, because it's about war, capturing these adorable little monkeys in the style of
I'm
Ape
just
Escape.
picturing Snake is like got one by the neck and he's like choking it out like that.
I mean, honestly, that might be how it looks like if you look up Snake versus Monkey. It's kind of bizarre, but it's just funny that they both decided to do this crossover. So, and I figure that would dovetail very nicely because you have another Metal Gear related crossover to talk about.
I do, and I had to really dig on this one a little bit because like I was researching this and I genuinely did not believe this was real until I started going down the Metal Gear wiki and finding out that this in fact was in the game. So one of the lesser titles, and I say lesser as in like not in quality, just lesser in like I think people who played it. In Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker, they had a crossover that I was not anticipating, which was Monster Hunter. Now, Monster Hunter I know is no stranger to its crossovers. Monster Hunter World I know had like The Witcher. There's like a Resident Evil crossover with like you can get some outfits that look like Leon Kennedy and Mr. X as part of it. But Peace Walker had actual monster fights in the game that you could play as Snake, and they are unlockable if you meet like certain criteria. Like there is a way to just get that in the game, no questions asked. And it featured including two of like the more fan favorite monsters, which include Rathlos, which, you know, it's if I had a nickel for every time I have seen Snake fight Rathlos, I'd have 2 nickels, which is now weird that it's twice. But the fact that this also happened before in Smash Ultimate is also really weird, but that's not the point. But they also have Tigrex from the earlier Monster Hunter games, which I actually wasn't familiar with initially, but I think it's a popular one from some of the older Monster Hunter games, especially at the time. And you are able to actually fight these creatures, and just like in Monster Hunter, you can either take them down lethally or non-lethally, how you see fit. But
and that's very appropriate for Metal Gear too.
Yes, so it weirdly like all tracks, but it's very odd that it's like in there, you know, because like when I'm thinking about a game that is talking about the socio-political climate of, you know, war and all that stuff, I'm thinking, man, I can't wait to just shoot this mortar at Rathlos's face. Again, I still can't believe that this is the second time that Snake has fought Rathlos in some capacity. That's the wildest thing to me. But I also found out there is a third fight that they made, and I'm sending you this link because I don't know how this feels normally, but they made a live version of a Metal Gear in terms of the Metal Gear Rex that you can fight.
Right.
And it doesn't quite look like the actual animatronic, but it does have a lot of the same futuristics. Like, they have, like, the tail is, like, the nuke arm that shoots it. They have, like, the legs almost match. They have the face that's weirdly like a hammerhead skull. Like, it works for what it's trying to do. I will give them absolute credit for that. But, like, it's so weird knowing that there is a... I'll say canonical. I can't confirm that. But there's a canonical living, breathing Metal Gear, essentially, than just the robot version that Snake has already had enough problems trying to destroy these in the past. So it's just so weird, because I kind of want to play Peace Walker just for this now.
I mean, I will say, there is a line in this article that you've sent me. It does say Gear Rex is featured in the non-canonical Monster Hunter Extra Ops. But still, like, in the game, even if you just want to confine it to that game, like, it happened. There is a monster that is a Metal Gear, and then there's still these other monsters in the same world, apparently.
Yeah, and it made me really kind of hope now at some point. Like, I severely doubt we'll get this, but like I would love to see if Snake makes an appearance on, like Monster Hunter Wild, just to see what happens if like they make like a special costume, kind of like they did for The Witcher and World, where they have like a little bit of combat change up because it's Geralt, so like we could have like an actual combat change up for Snake. But I don't think that's going to happen, unfortunately, but it'd be hilarious if it did. But like this was like the weirdest one for me, just because I could not believe that this actually existed at all. And this was like PlayStation 3 era. So like this has been around for a while. But like in terms of crossovers, I don't feel like this one's talked about nearly as much.
I would agree. I think that's one that's definitely flown under the radar. And I'm sure a big part of it is because you're right, it was PS3 type era, but if I recall, Peace Walker was a PlayStation portable game. Again, a 2010 PSP game. So like a late in the game for the PlayStation portable kind of game. So yeah, it makes sense that it's one that maybe people wouldn't know as well, which is funny because it actually probably would be pretty important to have some kind of idea what went on with it, because some of the events of the game are like pretty relevant to Metal Gear Solid 5.
Yeah.
Because, that's the Kojima way. Make everything relevant to each other. Actually, let's be honest. What am I saying? That's not just the Kojima way. That's the Kingdom Hearts way, too.
Oh, for sure.
So, yeah. And actually, to kind of come full circle, reportedly, Snake versus Monkey is also supposed to come back in the Metal Gear Solid Delta. So that's the remake of Metal Gear Solid 3. So
Let's go!
This might be coming full circle.
That would be hilarious. Like, could you imagine Ape Escape gets a reboot because it succeeds? It's like people want it because of Metal Gear Solid 3's remake. Like, that'd be hilarious.
It'd be nice. Honestly, it would be nice to see Sony to have a series other than just Astrobot as a like, hey, here's a not completely gritty, realistic series that we have,
Yeah.
Like, that, not to suddenly turn this into a topic on Sony's first-party output, but, I would definitely be much more interested in a PlayStation console if they had more first-party output like they did back in the PS1 and PS2 days.
Maybe that's something we should look into. Maybe that'll be a future episode as we look back at some of the more iconic Dead franchises and see if it's maybe time that they need to be brought back or not.
Yeah, because they've got a decent variety when you look at Ape Escape isn't like The Last of Us, that's for sure.
Well,
and honestly, it was a lot of Japan studio stuff that was a lot of their this is different, this is unique, And
it's really unfortunate because I feel like there's so many good franchises that have just kind of been lost to the test of time for that. But I'm getting ahead of myself on that. Maybe we'll definitely dive into that more at some point. But I think right now is a good place to wrap it up, unless you got anything else you want to add in terms of your list, or if we want to maybe do a part 2 of this topic down the line.
Well, we could certainly do a part 2 for this. But do you want to fit in one more here, since I know the last one you have here is a PlayStation one, and the other one here would once again dovetail really nicely with our discussion on PlayStation that I have.
This is just a weird one to me. This isn't going to take too long, but there are a lot of people who play Genshin Impact, and apparently Aloy from Horizon Zero Dawn made an appearance in the game. So my first question is just why? Why that specific character in Genshin? Of all the characters that they could add in, why did they have a crossover with Horizon of all things? And I did a little research. It looks like she was brought in back in 2021 and has since been playable, but she is no longer available, so you can't get her unless, like, I'm assuming if there's ever a point down the line they like do another event with her or something. But to me it just feels like a weird add into a game that's like, you look at the art style, it's very like anime, chibi, cutesy, kind of in that area, and then you put in a character that is like, at least graphically wise, one of the most hyper realistic looking games, I feel like, in the last decade. I understand it from like they're both very wide open games, but like it just feels like such a weird ad. Like, I don't feel like it doesn't really like add anything to either franchise. Like, it's just kind of hey, we did this, and it's kind of like, okay.
And then,
like, are we supposed to clap? What are we supposed to do here? Like,
all right, and maybe she's perfectly fun to play as, but you know, sometimes you gotta stop and ask yourself, is this really a good idea? Kind of like our topic last week, right? You know, does this make sense to do? It's sort of like in that, because the clear problem here is the clash in art styles. Like, you can do a cartoony Aloy, but is that gonna work?
I don't
in a
think
similar way,
like, I've seen
it's
the
like,
pictures of it, but like, it's not like the most out there thing. It just is a drastic turn from what she normally is portrayed as.
right. It's like the original version of Sonic in the Sonic movie. I mean, not nearly that bad, but like, you know, there comes a point where it's like, there's a clash there.
No, don't bring up the human teeth. No, we don't need that in our lives anymore. There's a reason Paramount got bullied by the internet for that.
Yeah, and just to be clear, like I said, I'm not trying to say these two in particular are like directly connected, because I guarantee the way Aloy looks in Genshin Impact is a lot better than that.
Well,
but
yeah.
it illustrates the point that, like, you know, sometimes your crossovers need to take into account things that just kind of make sense. Like in Smash Brothers, in a similar way, you have a lot of clashing art styles on paper, but they do a good job of like, let's make some subtle tweaks to these character designs so that it's not weird to see in the same room Mega Man and Banjo and Bayonetta and Snake. Like, they all kind of look like they fit together, even though two of them are clearly way more realistic than the other two.
Right.
All right. Well, I think this has been a nice little healthy discussion. And yeah, I mean, geez, I've still got 4 examples here of things. I noticed a lot of like patterns too with the ones that I picked out. 2 distinctly PlayStation ones, 2 distinctly Square/Square Enix choices, and 2 distinctly Sega choices. So, you know, maybe there's just like a little theme with these particular like game makers, that they like doing crossovers, even though they're a little out of the ordinary. And I mean, geez, we covered your entire list, so despite this being barely an hour long, we've covered quite a bit of ground today.
Like, I think crossovers are very fascinating. Like, this will be my final thoughts on it. But I feel like crossovers are a really unique opportunity that not enough games nowadays really take that risk anymore to really, like, illustrate, like, a shared universe, or being able to just have something fun added into the games. Like, you know, having Snake taking down monkeys via Ape Escape, or, you know, Dave the Diver saying, screw it, I'm going to stop playing the main game, play Balatro for an hour or so. And I wish that there was more of it. Like, whether it's full games like a Mario and Rabbids situation, or just something as brief as, you know, a DLC, or, you know, even just like a little nod. Like, Easter eggs, I know, are still pretty common and prevalent in a lot of games, shockingly, which I'm very happy about that. But, like, I like having other things that kind of throw me off guard, that, like, if I'm going down the rabbit hole to try to, like, 100% a game and accidentally finding something that they put in because, you know, it was part of the game that wasn't initially, like, something that people were going to find unless you were doing a certain train of thought or something like that. Like, I think that should be rewarded, and I feel like more studios really should try to find ways to kind of, like, it doesn't have to be like you have to cross over with everything. I'm not saying that, but like really find good opportunities for it. You know, when like Monster Hunter World would put in their like DLC that they would put in, it would just be like, oh well, we'll have Leon Kennedy skin for the hunter. Cool. Leon's gonna fight a Devil Joe. Sure, why not? I'm all for it. But I think it's definitely like underutilized still to this day. I feel like a lot of the examples that we kind of talked about really hit more in that like, you know, pre 2020 spot where I feel like it was more prevalent. Like between 2000 and 2020 feels like there were a lot more crossover opportunities that were taken. And I hope moving forward we see more.
Yeah, I think in some ways the more modern crossovers have been a little bit more in the opportunistic kind of sense. Like, I think there have been more that are like, man, this would be a cool brand deal to get. But that's not to say that there aren't any of those whatsoever. Like, I think it's appropriate you bring up Monster Hunter because, you know, Capcom has done pretty good at doing stuff like that lately. Like, I mean, in Street Fighter 6, you can play other classic Capcom games while you're like waiting to play online. They've had Monster Hunter crossover content. They've got, you know,
Don't
characters
forget the Turtles.
from Turtles, Fatal Fury. I can't remember exactly how it worked, but of course we got to point out there is a little bit of an Ace Attorney crossover in Street Fighter 6 too. So they do really good with crossing over with themselves. Maybe that's a little piece of the puzzle that might be interesting. Obviously, we had plenty of between developer crossovers here, but maybe the angle that might be more interesting to bring up in the future is like, because I think the little pattern I'm kind of noticing between a lot of these, not all these, like when I start looking at my list, but definitely with yours is, you know, third-party games using the fact that they're on a certain system. You know, Konami using the fact that they're on the PlayStation 2 to be like, let's do something with Ape Escape because that's a Sony property. I mean, the Metal Gear and Monster Hunter, that's two third parties going together. But, you know, like Mario and Rabbids, Ubisoft going, we're going to make a Switch game. Let's use a Nintendo property, you know, because we can. So, with the Telltale one, we're going to release on Steam. So let's have the Heavy from Team Fortress 2 and let's have GLaDOS. Two Valve very popular properties to use in your crossover. What can I say? Crossovers are just cool, man. I want more of them, but I want more of them with intentionality.
Yeah, and I think of my examples on here. I think Dave the Diver has to arguably have the most intentional crossovers because like they put in active like content with their crossovers. Like I mean, it's not saying like any of my examples were bad, I feel like per se, or even your examples, but I can't help but feel like Dave the Diver did us it so intentionally that they are putting the extra mile in with the stuff. It's like, okay, we have access to this. What do we do with it? It's like, all right, Dredge, we're gonna have cultists randomly show up in the sushi restaurant when you're cooking, and then we'll also have some weird eldritch monstrosities that you can go fish for. Cool. Print it. That's the kind of stuff that I would like to see more of, is more thoughtfulness in crossovers. Like, even if you build like a full game around, like I think initially when we talked about this list, like I brought up Street Fighter Cross Tekken. Like that is a very specific crossover that was built from the ground up, but that is the entire game as a crossover, not just like little bits and pieces or little nods or anything like that. I would like to see a lot more of that sort of stuff too, if doable, but I feel like with today's climate when it comes to property and intellectual property rights and whatnot, it's so hard to do that nowadays because like you're worried about, like I remember a while back there was the whole Dead by Daylight controversy where Stranger Things content was pulled
because the licensing ran out at the time. Like, you could still use it, but you couldn't buy it again. And then they eventually did bring it back. So, like, it becomes kind of a weird case, I feel like, where when you have these properties where, like, who has the rights and all this stuff. Even, like, a kind of a recent example, Playground Productions just put out their remake of Backyard Baseball 2001, excuse me. And I loved that game growing up. However, 3 of the pros from the original game are not in that game, though.
Well, that's a pretty big omission if part of the whole idea is to have the pro players in it. Like, in some ways, I guess that's more faithful to, like, the original ones, but, you know.
So, from what I understand, and I can't confirm this or not, but from what it sounds like, the 3 players that were omitted were actually not initially part of the players' union for the MLB. So, somewhere in there, they got lost. Like, the 3 that aren't in there are Barry Bonds, Ken Griffey Jr., and Frank Thomas. All very well-known players for that time in particular, and I think all 3, certifiably, people know those names. So their omission really just feels off. Like, as someone who played the game religiously when I was younger, I think it's really weird seeing those guys not in the game. And all the other 28 pros that they have do actually make it. Because now, like, the Giants and the White Sox don't actually have a proper representation. The Reds had Barry Larkin, so because Larkin was still in it, that's fine. And Griffey was also in the game at the time, too. Because, let's be honest, the player who's nicknamed The Kid just made sense to put in Backyard Baseball.
No. The Kid?
Yeah, straight up. Ken Griffey Jr. is known as The Kid. Because, like, his dad also played. That's why he was called The Kid.
Well, and he's a junior. The Kid.
Yeah, but it just feels so weird not having him in the game. Although, and I'm not trying to get them in trouble for it, I just noticed this when I first booted up the game. Griffey is still in the intro sequence for the game, but he's not in the game. So, I don't know what happened there, but
That's a
I
little
don't know
strange.
if it's maybe something that they're still trying to work out, and maybe they can get lucky with getting those characters back in at some point. But I don't know the logistics and the legalities of it all, so I'm not going to say one way or the other what should be done. Like, I am by no means any expert in law, or any of this stuff for that matter. But I do hope at the minimum, I hope Griffey gets put back in, just so that at least we have the Kid back in Backyard Baseball.
Not only is our earlier mentioning of the Godzilla stuff not sponsored, we are not lawyers. And while we're at it, just to cover our bases, no financial advice has been given in this episode either.
Yes, and I'm also not a hibachi chef, but I want to make sure all our bases are crossed.
Yep. Any level of expertise you could want, I can guarantee we probably don't have. Not to say that we're like complete idiots, but, you know...
Speak for yourself. I am a certifiable idiot, thank you kindly.
Okay, fine. Well, you know, as long as you got the certification, we're just saying we don't have knowledge on things that could get us, like, in trouble. Yeah.
Yeah, we're just two guys on the internet who want to talk about games. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. You got it. Yeah, but I think we are ready to conclude the episode here, are we not?
Last I checked, yeah. I mean, I was going to conclude the episode, like, maybe a good 8 minutes ago, but...
Okay.
We kind of went off, and I was like, well, let's not ruin the boat.
No, let's just let it sail off smoothly into the sunset. If you have any perhaps fun crossovers you'd love to share with us, you have plenty of different ways you can do that when you engage with us. Maybe you liked the topic, and then we'll share your favorite crossover in a comment. You could also leave a message at that platform I mentioned earlier in the episode. That would be speakpipe.com/endless conversation loop, and we will certainly listen to and most likely play your message should you share it. Otherwise, yeah, you can comment it in writing if you want, whether it's on Spotify, YouTube, or some other platform out there. And we would certainly love it if you subscribed to the show on whatever platform you're listening to it as well, because then you can hear the next episode when it comes out right away, too.
Yeah, just as long as you guys are showing us the support on the episodes, it does mean a lot, too. And as we are kind of doing more of these, maybe we'll have our own crossovers down the road. We don't know yet.
Yeah, we can only plan so far in the future, which we are doing some planning, but, that one is probably going to take a little bit more effort in terms of getting stuff like guests on there. But, I mean, that'd be fun. I would love to do something like that. But with that all said, I am ready to sign out. My name is Brandon.
And I am a certifiable idiot.
And we will be here next time with perhaps some more... No, actually, I can't say that. I would hope the next episode doesn't have much idiocy because we have something serious planned for it. Anyway.
I hate to tell you this, but you have me as a co-host. You are guaranteed to have that.
We'll see what happens.
You're so thrilled about that.
Maybe I can get that certificate revoked.
Well, then I don't have any expertise then. Damn.
Yeah. Anyway, we will talk to you next time. Thank you for listening today, everybody.
Bye-bye.